welcome back to Pastor Plek's podcast. I'm so glad that you are joining us as we're recording live from Austin, Texas. And with me in the studio today is none other than Mo Parks. Really excited for this. Mo, welcome.
I am too. Yeah, thanks. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, I know that you've been listening to the show pretty much your whole life. But since you may not have been fully up to date on all our latest things, tell us first off who you are and like what you do and how you met my wife.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Mo Parks, and I work with married business owners.
Yeah.
And I don't own the company, but the company's called The Powerful Man,
Mm-hmm.
and we help married business owners who are men get their marriages back. So typically, guys are kind of struggling. They're doing really well at work, and they're crushing it in a lot of ways, but they've kind of let go of some pieces of the relationship, and they're either in a place where their wives are looking for a divorce, or they're kind of starting to get the hint that they haven't been doing the right thing over time and wanting to kind of get some help there.
Okay, and then how did you meet my wife?
So I met her through a neighbor who goes to the church, and we had an awesome time at the retreat. I think that's probably the most memorable.
Oh, the women's retreat.
Yeah, the women's
that was like
retreat.
Women's Retreat 2022 or
Yes.
something. Yeah.
Yes, and I just kind of like jumped aboard last minute, and then we ended up having these long, awesome conversations about her life and
it
about.
was pivotal for her for sure. She said it was really impactful for her, and it made her think about a ton of things, and so that was really cool. And so I'm really excited to get to know you. So kind of what I wanted to do with this particular show is I would be your client. Thank you. Yeah. And because I loved. I'm sure there's a lot of growth that I need to grow in. Especially because I'd fit this category. So I want you to walk me through whatever it is you ask, and I want you to kind of take me through, because you're not coming from like a Christian perspective, but and this is what's weird to me, or maybe not weird, but exciting for me, is that it feels like Christianity is the last, like when you're insular in the church, it can feel like only Christians care about men leading anything, but that's not true. It's ubiquitous, and so what we have here, we should be probably doing it the best, but we in general don't. So I would love for that to be something that we could really improve upon, because we need to be a light to the world to show the world how men should lead and kill it in business, but then also crush it when it comes to leading their families.
Marriage and family. Yeah, cool. So before we get started, I'm going to do something a little strange and weird. I'm going to have you uncross your arms.
Okay, uncrossing.
And just kind of take a deep breath and just like fully kind of relax your body.
Okay.
Because a lot of times guys, when they're at work, they're spending a lot of their day in their head.
Yes.
And they're thinking
I
past
gotta
their
uncross.
thinking.
It's very hard because I usually like lean into the
I know.
mic,
Well, you're okay to touch your hands.
All right, here. How about I just do this? How about this?
It's really just more about the release, the lack of protection, but uncross your legs too.
Oh, sorry. Wow. All right.
And just kind of want you to like close your eyes and just like breathe for a second, and remember that this isn't about work. It's not about anything big. This is just your time with you and me, and just to remain some presence. So when you're good, come back, and I'm going to ask you some questions.
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Cool. So to start, what do you feel like is the biggest challenge in your relationship right now?
With my wife, the biggest challenge is my ability to properly plan things that she values in a way that she receives.
Okay.
Yeah, like, so, for example, like the one thing I'm thinking about right now is our anniversary, which is coming in March. Mm-hmm. And I'm a typical holiday sabotager. So like birthdays, Christmas, I'm ready to just be like, make it miserable for everybody. Mm-hmm. And so I have to be intentional about making it awesome, because I've become good or decent at existing in the environments of holidays and those environments, but I'm not intentional and like super present and like killing it. Like,
okay, so I'm hearing you say that you can plan an event well, but actually being there, or you don't plan it well.
Flip it. I can
be there well.
I can be there because and naturally in my workspace, I'm great at taking a situation and kind of like making the best of it, and so I think I've just done that with everything.
Okay, so you're basically fly by the seat of your pants, but you're a really good improviser.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, all right, we're at a Christmas party. Let's do the Christmas party. I can be. Who do you want me to talk? That guy sounds good. Want me to engage you with this?
Yeah.
Great. But I know
planning portion's important to her.
Planning, like I know to Adrian, what really matters is that I think through all the logistics of everything, that it's about where our anniversary falls. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's unfortunate. The reality is it falls on the week of 2 of my son's birthdays. So I have a March 14th is one son, March 18th is another son, and then March 19th is our anniversary. And so and I know that she values, and I've learned to value birthday parties for boys and how important that is to celebrate.
So what's the current problem? You don't plan well.
I want to plan it well, but I need to get space with her where it doesn't create an argument. So yeah. So it's like I want to. So I guess
do you feel you need to get permission from her to plan it?
Yes. It's like I know that whatever I do, it's not going to be right, and so that kind of, it's like a self-defeating thing for me. It's like
so there's like no way you can possibly have leadership even in the moment because you feel there's going to be a constant permission check-in with her.
Yes.
So in other words, you're finding yourself coming into a lot of spaces where you're asking for permission instead of letting her know.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. 100%. And yeah, that's it.
So is it possible then that you've lost leadership in the relationship in regard to these things?
Absolutely. Yeah.
The only reason I ask that is because typically when I see guys show up in one of two ways, when I say women show up in one of two ways, they're either really dominant, assertive, and aggressive, or very withdrawn and shut down. What that typically tells me is that it usually tells me that you've lost leadership in the relationship.
Yeah, I would say I've lost leadership.
Okay. So, and which is fine. It's just like establishing what is the bigger problem, right? You can see it in the context of
the symptom is brought about.
The symptom
by
is the relationship. Yeah. So if you felt me cutting you off, it's because I'm looking for the symptom versus
absolutely.
The problem. It's not my cold-heartedness.
No, cut me off. I don't care.
I would love to do that too. And so when you're looking at a loss of leadership, that's basically what 99% of the guys that are coming to us also are struggling with.
Yeah.
And part of it is what we ask them to do is not like, which I didn't feel you doing this, put it off on the woman, right? Say like, well, she's so angry with me, or she always needs da-da-da-da-da. Is there a part for her to play? Yeah, for sure. But it's sort of like if you put a flower in a dark room with not enough water, soil, or sunlight, then it's going to wilt. It's going to fall over. But if you take that same flower, you put it in the sun with the right amount of water, soil, sunlight, then it blooms. Right? And the environment that you're creating is one that hasn't been suitable for her to trust you in those leadership spaces.
Right. And I think what's happened in the past, and this is probably, she's reacting to the me that probably several years ago was like, not that I went Jehovah's Witness on like holidays or anything, but I was just like, and I think I kind of, maybe it's part of the expectation is like, for my wedding, all I did was show up. It was great.
Yeah.
And everyone was happy. I didn't have to plan anything. I didn't care about what flowers were there. I had zero opinions, and I thought that was the right answer.
Right.
And I think what I've learned over time is actually the right answer is to have opinions, but not. I don't think I've ever exercised anything in a draconian way. However, when I can want to assert something that I feel like I'm doing the right thing and it's for her, I find later that that's not actually what she wanted, and I think that's where I get. I think the term would be defeated or like shut down, and I need to obviously I need to overcome and not just be like, oh, I'm a victim of my wife, And I think there have been times where I have gone victim mindset.
Yeah.
Then that makes her feel probably she needs to take more control, and so therefore it creates this little cycle of spin where I'm now wanting to do the right thing, and I want to love her well, and I want to be Christ to her, and then all of a sudden I find myself, I'm like,
I can imagine feeling like you've played all out, like you're doing all these things, you're trying, you're even thinking about this 3 months ahead of time, and then you plan something out all to get to the point where she's like, hey, it wasn't enough.
Right. Or like that I'm doing it wrong in the planning, and then we have an argument about the argument, and I'm like, but I just wanted to do the right thing, and I want to honor you. I really do. Like the things that I'm assertive with, like every year I write a poem, and like that's kind of like our thing to do, and like I thought of dinner and that kind of thing. And initially I was like, hey, every year let's go to the same place where we had our honeymoon. And so I booked the honeymoon, and we did it the first year, and I wanted to do it. I'm kind of a systems person. Let's just put it on repeat, baby. And all you got to do is like, it's already set for there. So my natural gifting is in the logistics are taken care of, and I can respond really well in the moment if I don't have to think about those things.
Can I ask you an honest question?
Yeah,
I'm going to pause you.
Yeah.
Because I can see you as you're explaining, you're going into your head instead of staying in your body. Ooh. So I want you to think for a second, how does the fact that your wife treats you this way make you feel? if in word or less?
Oof, a word or less.
Mm-hmm.
Probably I don't know. That's probably, and I think maybe that's probably part of my problem is I don't know my emotions.
Oh, okay. So
I'm an emotional delay person, so I'll have an event hit me.
That's a really good story. You do know your emotions because you know when you're happy and you know when you're loved and you know all these things. But
I don't know if that's
you
true.
Label,
I think
labeling your emotions is hard.
Yeah, labeling it. Yeah, I can't. Maybe I don't know it until like 3 months later.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I have an emotional delay. So I'll have this conversation with you, and we'll say something really weird, and like a week later, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I just screwed that up with Mo. I said the thing.
Okay. So couple things coming up for me. My guess would be you feel disrespected.
Yeah,
and
okay.
You feel maybe a lack of appreciation.
Yeah, that's good.
And like you are doing all the right things. Like you're planning for this, Chris. Like you're thinking through it and you're thoughtful about it and you're trying to love her and you're trying to serve her. I think the hard part is when you've done all that and it's, again, still not coming up as enough or...
Sure.
Like
I don't want to put it like on like that she's the problem because clearly I feel like the leadership that I've exhibited
for sure
has created an environment where now she wants to make sure that I understand, and rightfully so, how important things are. It's just not a gifting of mine, which I need to figure out how I can approach with vulnerability without losing leadership. So I think that's where my weakness comes and this, I think just if I were to kind of assert or kind of do a overarching weakness that I have with my marriage and with like leadership in the church, it's, I know where I want to go ultimately, but then there's obstacles emotionally for me that I have a hard time overcoming. And it's not just my wife, it's everything in general.
Yeah.
And so I think, but I have a hard time pinpointing what exactly it is because I'm not super in tune with my emotions. And so I have a difficult understanding of like, why did I get angry at like this situation? And I don't even know why. Yeah. And then maybe like a month later after I've thought about it and processed it, like had like 50 quiet times and I'm like, oh, it just takes forever. It's like I am emotionally delayed in a lot of ways. I'm sure that has a lot to do with my upbringing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But man, it's frustrating. And I think if there was like a tool that I could go like, hey, when you're in an emotionally delayed position, you should do these 3 things. You know, recenter yourself, blah, blah.
Are you aware when you're in an emotionally delayed position?
I don't. Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes.
So there's a lot of different angles you could go here. You could go to the route of tracking your triggers. You could go to the route of developing emotional awareness through journaling. You could do a bunch of different things. But if I kind of stick with the root around leadership, because usually how we're leading others in the relationship is also reflective of how we lead ourselves.
Right.
And a lot of times, if there's inconsistencies in our leadership and ourself, meaning
that's
like,
good.
What do your habits look like?
Yeah, talk to me about that.
So there's a couple things that come up for guys they get in the way of them either leading themselves or leading their spouses.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see most common is sort of this nice guy syndrome. And the nice guy syndrome is embedded in this massive people-pleasing idol.
Sure. I definitely have a lot of that.
So the people-pleasing idol, and I think even in Christian culture, we can get in the habit of admitting our idols and then
doing nothing about it.
Yeah. Well, and it's all a story, right? It's like, that's an unconscious commitment that I have. And then it stops there.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, that's just what I struggle with. But it's like, no. Jesus came to enter into that and free you. Like he's a shackle breaker. And so in regard to what does it look like to stop your story, stop your story. So there's a little bit of that that gets in the way of people leading themselves. There also is just an aspect of not really getting the value or the discipline in, and the discipline, if it's not there to lead yourself, and I'm talking everyday habits.
Yeah, this is really good.
The everyday habit stuff, if you don't have discipline there,
let's walk through some of those. Let's walk through some of those
habits. So, eating healthy, working out.
Yeah.
I mean, getting in the Word if you're a Christian.
Yeah.
Even journaling, basic breath work. Like there are just some naturally grounding things, getting up before your kids and kind of like pre-framing your day. Like there are just some ways that you can wake up, because how you treat yourself is how other people treat you too. So if you're making 0 time in your day for you, then you're telling yourself the feedback loop of I'm not valuable. So then you come into the world looking for, they don't think I'm valuable either. which sets you up as a people pleaser for like massive amounts of wanting to go out to other people and beg to them on not like tangibly, but saying those bids for someone to come back to you and be like, oh, now I'm good.
Yeah. That's good. So I think, for my habit, like every day I wake up and the first 30 minutes is spent in prayer, not journaling, just in the presence of God, just in presence, trying to be present with his presence.
Got it.
And then after that, I read God's word, and then I pray. I have a journal prayer that I pray for other people, and then the day starts with the kids. So that usually, it used to be I could try and get up at 4:30 and I would do that. And then this is where my own victimhood came in, is like I'd stay up too late the night before. So now it's at 6, like 6 o'clock every day I'll get up. And then I'll get my workout in after I take the kids to school. So that's kind of the daily rhythm for the most part that I stick to pretty functionally every day. But what I'm hearing is like, even in like that 30 minutes of quiet with God, being present with his presence, I could probably do maybe some reflective journaling, because I probably don't need 30 minutes of that. I could probably just do like, hey, Lord, what are you speaking to me? And then write it down or something. I don't know, something along those lines. I have framed out time there, and maybe, honestly, I just wanted to see if I could do it initially, and then it became really a sweet thing.
Yeah. So there's practicality around leadership. Like, I would tell you, go do your routines or get a journal and do these specific things. Like, I could walk you through all of that, and Chris, you could probably nail it.
Right.
And we'd still have a problem.
Right.
Because there is this mentality or heart issue there too.
Yeah.
And so it's not around, like, why isn't Chris doing his habits? Why isn't Chris doing his disciplines? There's something around your story, I would guess.
Yeah. That's
keeping you even in that cyclical rhythm. So you can't just do your habits and that be it. It's got to be the habits and the inner work. And I would recommend everyone, regardless of what your life looks like, to do some of this inner work with a specialist, a counselor.
Okay. So walk me through some of the inner work of what you're talking about.
Okay. So, I'm like, where do I start? No, I'm just kidding. So typically when I see a guy, you mentioned a couple things: people pleasing, lack of leadership, a little inconsistency in the habits. What I would guess, and some of that inner work would start with, when's the first time you remember feeling like you were getting your value from the approval of others?
Approval of others. Man. Maybe in my 20s. I know that sounds ridiculous because my mom was always the ultimate cheerleader. So growing up, I wasn't looking for any. I never felt like I ever needed my parents' approval for diddly squat because I had it.
Because you had it.
Okay. There was never. I can't remember a time where I didn't think I was the greatest thing. Now that probably developed other issues. Like, I'm the greatest thing that walks on this planet. And then the rude awakening of real life. But I think kind of entering into Christian ministry where I felt like, oh man, there are things I'm not measuring up to because I am. Yeah, I feel like it's almost the kind of in the early 20s of sitting there going like, unless you can talk, maybe let's go back before that. I think probably basketball, like, I'm 5'9", so of course that didn't work out, but like not being a starter or, because I would practice more than anybody. I'd be out till 2 a.m. just shooting free throws and working on my game as much as I possibly could, and it didn't result in any, but I still felt really good about being on the team. So I don't. It's like one of those things. Like that's tough. Probably part of my problem. It's tough to identify that part where I didn't feel like I was getting. Gosh, what's the right word for that? Like I was like, man, how come I don't have any approval? Like I don't think I felt that. Probably until like recognition of sin and stuff.
The need was being met.
Yeah.
Right. So you didn't have to look for it. So it didn't actually come out maybe as sin at that point or as dysfunction at that point.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and if it doesn't land, that's okay.
Yeah. But
I'm just going to do my best. Okay. When did you feel like you stopped loving yourself?
Ooh, I'm pretty into myself.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I'm thinking there was a piece that, and like I said, this may not land because I knew that about you.
That one's hard because I have like way too high self-esteem. I don't like, how people feel like like God can't love me. I always feel like, man, God loves me. I run around thinking that all day long.
Yeah.
I don't ever have a moment where I'm like,
I feel that as well. So
Yeah.
there's a little difference. God loves you, and I know you have a good reflection of yourself. If you were to look yourself in the mirror at your eyes and say, and I know this sounds countercultural, sounds counter-Christian.
Sure.
The reality is we were made in his image.
Yeah.
So to look at ourselves and say, I love you, is a reflection of like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm proud of the person God's made me.
Yeah, I am. I really am. I truly don't feel like sometimes the only thing I'm like, man, I wish my leadership was better because then I could do whatever. But then I'm like, but I'm exactly like when I look at that's a doing thing, not a being thing.
Yeah.
So I feel being.
I love that. No, that's
I'm
great
a human
news.
being, and I really am. I love being in the presence of myself. I love being in the presence of God.
Yeah.
I feel like when I enter the room, people are happy to be around me, and generally, like I bring a light to the room. So I don't. I like that's.
So who are you without the approval of others?
I love this.
You
is
love
where
you.
Yeah, I love me.
Okay.
I actually kind of do.
Good.
Yeah,
I'm glad we could take that moment.
I'm like, I'm pretty excited about who I am, and like I don't. There's never a point of like self-loathing ever.
Yeah.
Like I don't. When people have that, I have a hard time relating to it. In fact, that might be a problem that I have.
I'm similar. But I have that side of me that can go there. So like I can relate to people in that respect. Okay, then I take it back. So let's walk back through this.
Yeah.
We were talking about just more the mindset portion of this, the inner work. You had the approval. You always had that growing up. And then you enter college.
The failure hit me at college. I was meaning like I was at West Point. So I was the very fact that I was there, I was like, I'm at one of the most prestigious places in the entire country. Of course this is going to be hard, but it was so hard. And so I didn't make like friends. I had to be like, listen, if I'm going to make it through this place, I have to study, and everyone else is going to go party. And I chose the hardest major that I could possibly think of. That was dumb. And so I spent every weekend, every night studying. And so I lost a lot of the friendships that probably would have been awesome to experience while I was at West Point and in college. And then being an officer, you're sort of separate from the main people that you're with. And anyway, I think there was a long period of time in my 20s where I didn't get to feel like, not accepted, because I was always looked up to. It's like, I'm an officer. I should be doing something amazing all the time. And I was, for the most part. I was an airborne ranger. I was leading people in combat. I'm doing like all these awesome things. So I think... So I feel like there's obviously a piece of it where my dad had a part where I felt loved by my dad. I just didn't respect my dad. This might be the I'm like, this might be the thing. Because my dad never disciplined me, ever. And so I always felt like I had to discipline him. Like, and not that I ever would, but I'd always be nervous for my dad that he was going to make a bad decision. And he did. And it would cost me. And then sometimes I took risks. I felt the Lord leading me to help him, like financially, which is like a big deal. And I did. And then it didn't backfire. Actually, it worked out. And I was always sort of like wanting my dad to live up to the potential that he had, because and he's passed away now, but he was amazing. He was so gifted in so many ways. Ultimate supporter of me, like the biggest, like, Chris, you're great. And had all the potential in the world to make his life great. He tanked himself all the time. And I was just like, So I remember at 13, like the biggest memory I have of that at 13, my dad, it's not like they got divorced at 13, but he moved to Georgia from Dallas.
Okay.
And he took a U-Haul, filled it up with a bunch of tools and a bunch of stuff from the house, and then just drove off. I was like, all right, see you, Dad. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to go to Georgia. And he made it like no big deal. And I was like, it was like that empty feeling of like, my dad lives in Georgia. This is weird. Before everyone had a cell phone, I could call him up anytime.
Yeah.
So I feel like there might have been something there. Like I remember being 13 and coming home, knowing he wouldn't be there to help me out with anything. And I was like, I have to do this myself. But that's when I was like, no, wait, God's with me. It was like a weird... So I feel like that's the part where if I have any weakness, it would be like, I don't know how I connect with older men, because I never really saw that with my dad. And so I just don't have a frame of reference for that. which is very empowering and very awesome to have older men that can speak in your life. And I do have older men now that do speak into my life, but I'm not always going like, hey, older man, come speak into my life. It kind of happens by the grace of God.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so who taught you how to be a man? Who taught you like how to lead?
The academy. I know that sounds so I feel like it was West Point was so awesome in so many ways of selfless.
What about like 13 until that point?
My mom, she was great.
Okay.
She was super loving, we talked about everything, girls, whatever. There was no off limit subjects.
Yeah.
She knew everything about me. She knew, girls, whatever. She knew it all. And she'd like, here's how you get the girl. Here's what you say. Here's what you do. Boom, 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 boom. And like super instructional, helpful.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah.
And loved that about my mom. And she was so great.
Yeah.
So, I feel like that was great. So whatever my dad was lacking, she made up for it, which obviously be weird in many ways, but she was just unbelievable at making that happen for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously she had no problem disciplining, and when I was out of control, she'd put the fire out.
Great woman. Sounds like
she was
amazing.
Awesome.
So I'm just kind of fishing here because I honestly just don't know that much.
Yeah.
In that time period of her kind of teaching you to be a man, kind of giving you some of that skill set. It sounds like a lot of those were connected to like how to deal with women.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Because not that I didn't think about her in terms of academic prowess. I just was like, that's not her department.
Yeah.
And this is where I was so egocentric. I just thought I was the smartest person in the world. And so there's like, if it was out there, I could learn it and I could do it on no problem. It just took a matter of hard work. I would do it.
Yeah.
And so that was I loved school. Like every day was a challenge. It was fun. It was exciting. But yeah.
Yeah. So when I talk about leadership, and I want to be clear on this, I am talking about self-leadership, and I'm talking about like the physicality of leadership, like planning the dates, like you were talking about, and doing those things.
Yeah.
There's also this massive impact of emotional leadership.
Right.
And if you are having that emotional disconnect and having like not really processing emotions in the moment, then it's more than likely you're going to be looking for the opinion and approval of others.
Sure.
To make sure that you did the right decision.
Yeah, that's
like,
good.
Is this right?
Yeah.
And
so I do feel like that might become where my dad, the lack of that inhibited me greatly. And I was still able to function on a personal level because my mom instilled a lot of the emotion. Like I was able, like I'd cry with my, every emotion I am totally okay with because my mom was super nurturing at the same time, all the things. But there is something missing probably because of that, the dad vacuum there that I don't really know what went on there.
So again, just kind of throwing a fishing hook here. I love that your mom was all those things and power freaking to her.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, and I don't know, did she have another husband that she was with? Was there another guy in the house? So a lot of cases and again, take my word for what it is. But in a lot of situations where a guy, a boy grows up with his mom, they can create a little bit of an enmeshment.
Yep.
And it's sort of like what's hers is yours, what's yours is hers, and it almost like there's no like division of self.
Right.
Like you feel because she feels, and if she feels something, you feel something. If you feel something, she feels something. It's not intentional. It just happens.
Oh, that happens. I think at 18 that. Me going to West Point shut it off.
Yeah.
Like she didn't really want to talk to me. Not that she didn't want to talk.
She's like, I raised you. You're
you're
good.
done. Like I was out. And in retrospect, at first I was like, how come you don't want to talk to me? But then it was like, oh, I'm my own person now. And then whenever we got engaged, there was a point which it was a little awkward with Adrian and me, and like she was starting to parent her. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
No, if you want, we're not. This is my new thing.
Line. Yeah.
And I had that conversation happened in engagement time, and so I had a hard line there with her, which was I think helpful. And she's been super respectful, really, ever since of that. Line, which sometimes she'd say like, Adrian owns me or whatever, but I'm like, whatever. It doesn't. I don't ever feel like less than because she isn't thrilled with the way that.
So you had a great relationship with your mom, and this is kind of where I'm going with this is when you guys had a great relationship, you said she was caring, she was loving, like she was always there for you. She was, I mean, she's a great,
awesome.
great mom. And like I said, if there was that enmeshment, there was a sense of connected emotionalness.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And what happens in a lack of leadership is there is a connection of emotionalness, that there isn't two individuals functioning emotionally.
Right. Yeah.
So if Adrian feels it, you feel it. So if Adrian's starting to feel like, hey, I'm worried about this event, then you might take on some of that.
Yeah, sure.
Not all of it.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the pattern of enmeshment that kind of shows up. And
I think maybe probably the bigger piece for me, is, as I think about it, is I did not have any enmeshment, and now I'm learning to. And I'm learning to, like, how much do I care about said, because I know my birthday sabotager. I'm a Christmas sabot. Like, I would stay asleep in Christmas all the way till about noon intentionally, because I hated the time of waiting for everyone to get there for presents. So I was like, screw it. I'm just going to sleep in here and just like, I will not have to deal with, can we open the presents now? I will just sleep till noon. And it worked. And so when I got down, present time, it was beautiful. I think, so I was able to adapt to the situation and kind of like take control of that. And I don't know if that, again, I don't know.
Are you talking about in your marriage?
No, when I was a kid. When I was, I think I remember I was like 8. And it was like, I wanted to go, I hated waiting for, and so I was like, oh, I'll just sleep late, and I've solved the problem. I don't have to sit there and stare at presents for 3 hours. But again, and I think maybe, over time, Christmas and holidays, I was deployed or I was in the Army. And so I was Christmas by myself, and like, it's not that big of a deal. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt great being by myself, but I didn't feel like I was missing anything.
Yeah.
And so I think when I got into marriage, it's like Christmas is the end all be all. And I didn't understand that reality, because to me, it was like, it's just another day. And we're
that's just going to be the bringing in family. So it sounds like you shifted from being emotionally detached to trying to emotionally
So now
engage.
I'm trying to emotionally attach more.
Yeah.
And what's hard is, again, with the emotional delay factor that I know is there, that I feel like I bring a lot of emotion at the wrong time, and I really want to fix it, but it's now like a day before the thing, and I'm like, crud, and if that makes sense. And so I feel like so now I'm like, as I'm talking to other men who have the same issue, because it seems like everybody has this issue.
A ton of men that we deal with are totally emotionally detached.
Right. And so now I'm like, okay, guys, here's what we're going to do. Plan now.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way to sort of get ahead, because I want to feel the things that matter to her, so that I make her life awesome, because I want to love my wife like Christ loved the church, and I'm going to value the things that she values. And even though I don't think, who cares if we have like a birthday party that with like, a bazillion people there, or it's just us, to me, but I know that's a great value of hers, and I'm going to value that. So now I need to do it in a way that isn't, I guess I think the vulnerability part for me is like, I'm gonna come in, hey, I want to do this thing, and then the disrespect part makes me shut down, and then I've got to overcome.
Yeah. So I think what you're kind of talking about, we call it engaged indifference. You're engaged in the process, but indifferent to the result.
Yeah, maybe. But
You aren't. I don't think.
Yeah,
you are
I want the
to
result to be awesome, but I don't know how to. It's like there's this gap somewhere that I'm like, there's something I'm missing, and I don't know what it is.
Part of it is surrender. You can't control the whole result.
Right.
You can't control her response. You can't control, but what you can control is your reactivity to her response.
Yeah, that's good. And I think sometimes instead of going like, oh, thank you for that encouraging rebuke of everything I just said that I planned, I will now go back to the drawing board and present something better. I go, see, that's why we don't do, like.
Yep. Which then you put the entire emotional mental weight back onto her. Like,
here you go.
Guilty.
I'm going to throw that back on you.
Yeah. So I think when you're thinking through this, you're thinking through it the right way. You're thinking through, how do I plan ahead of time?
Yeah.
But what I hear is just like an emotional connectivity to, will she like it? Will be good enough? Will she like it? Will be good enough? And that's where that enmeshment comes in.
Okay. Yeah.
That's what I'm.
So that's good. Yeah, because I feel like, so I'm not allowed to in my head, I can't disappoint her, and that's the part where I'm enmeshed, and I can't let her have her own emotions, and I have mine.
Yeah. And who else were you never allowed to disappoint?
Yeah, my mom. Okay, that's good. In a sense, until it was time. It was appropriately timed for, and I think I had zero problem with that when it was the right time.
Yeah. A lot of people, like, when they feel it is the right age, that's okay. Like, they can
that's good. Okay, so then now with Adrian, I guess my problem is I need to do something or lead something without fear of her not being excited about it. And I think that, if I were to look at my leadership of the church or leadership of, it's like, I don't want to, I hate when I have to disappoint people or they're going to leave, like we're going to have some decision. Everyone's going to walk out and like, what are we going to do? Blah, blah, blah. Like those are the fears that sort of creep up in me. And so maybe I do feel like this like holistic health of leadership is like, if I can lead myself, obviously God leading with me, but all that, I'm going to lead to a point where I'm not afraid of your response to my decision, and whether you're disappointed or not, I'm gonna pursue it. And I think there's this part of me that's like, what if she leaves? And I know that's probably zero chance of that, but I think there is that like reality of like I think I'll go there in my head, and as I process it, I think that might be like, oh no, she'll leave me if I don't do this right. Yeah.
What comes up for you when you say that? What do you see, any like tie-ins or anything?
It's a blank void of like unknown. Yeah.
So when you realized your dad was gone, you lost connection to him.
Yeah.
So you had to emotionally detach from that.
Okay, good. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Right. So when you're thinking through emotional detachment in that moment, what did it give you? What need did it meet for you?
I was able to, so I definitely had to emotionally detach from my dad. I remember it clearly. I linked into God, not fully wrapping my head around what that meant, but what it did was like, I took care of myself. I studied myself. I did myself. I'm going to drive myself. You
became independent.
Became fully independent at 13.
Right.
Yeah.
Which children at 13 are not supposed to be fully independent. They should be.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens.
Right. Yeah.
I'm same situation.
Yeah.
There was that too in for us. And so when you were abandoned, the need that it met for you to emotionally detach was safety.
Yeah. Okay. Safety.
Or whatever.
Yeah. I think this is like, is that yeah, but I think you're right.
Sorry. I didn't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
So, finish the sentence. When my dad left, in that moment, what did I choose to do to survive?
I remember it clearly. It was like, if my dad's not here, Jesus is going to be my dad, which was like a wild thing. It's
so sweet. Like that's
but it was a weird moment because I didn't, and I think that's why I'm probably a pastor. Every pastor I know has dad issues, but it's like, of course. Yeah. So you just go whenever you meet a pastor, like, so what dad issue are you working through? But I feel like for me, so going back to that, it was like extreme comfort in God and his love for me, and I was fully valued. And I didn't even go to a good church. Like I went to like a flaming liberal church. It was weird. I like, it was like ELCA Lutheran. So I was like, somehow, but I read the Bible enough to understand that God had a great deep love for me. And so I think the need that it just leaned me into Jesus, which then prevented me from doing a lot of dumb stuff that I saw all my friends doing, not because of I had anyone telling me to. It's just like I was making better decisions because I wasn't trying to rebel against anything.
Yeah.
I was like fully, like I was always trying to keep my parents in line to do the right thing. It was like when they would, I wouldn't cuss.
In that moment, what was Jesus saving you from?
Alone. Yeah. Being alone.
Yeah.
That's good.
So what are you fearful of when
maybe it's being alone? No? Yeah, being alone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think she's going to leave. He's like, oh, that's irrational. But what did you do? You just mapped the same pattern you did.
Yeah, that's good. So I do, and then I can probably emotionally detach. So the thing that's preventing the proper enmeshment, is there a proper enmeshment?
Healthy connection.
Healthy, yeah. Is there a healthy connect? I don't know. What's the right thing?
Enmeshment and detached are the externals of emotion.
Okay,
and
so
it's
healthy
connection.
Healthy connection. So I think the thing that prevents healthy connection for me, this is really helpful. So the thing that prevents healthy connection for me is a proper view of Adrienne that she's not going to leave, and even if she does, I'll be fine. But the reality is, and I think that's probably where I like, because we're not guaranteed diddly squat on this planet. So like she could die, all sorts of things could happen. But I think for the most part, it's just like the fear of her walking away. That might be the best way to put it, is something that I've got to be, one, not actually afraid of, but okay with, I think is what you're saying. Like a healthy place of like, I'm going to disappoint her in some ways, and that's okay. And I'll still be a fine human being, which I know from the past that's true. Because I turned out even better. So I don't. I think that's where it's like, is the alone feeling is definitely the thing that I remember at 13. Thankfully, over time, I've matured, and I'm like, I'm going to work through this, and it's very difficult, but it's very healthy.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, and I think with Adrian, I look at it as like, I'm going to plow through this thing, and I'm going to do it because that's the right thing to do. Yeah. And I think there's a part of that's good.
Yeah.
But part of it, like, I think it's helpful to go, oh no, the piece that I'm really lacking is that when my dad took off at 13. And I felt the weight of that aloneness, and that kind of reinvigorates itself. So I don't want to feel that alone. And so when that comes up, I will still fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, that makes sense. When you are starting to feel triggered, that's what that word means. When you are triggered back into that state, your body remembers. It remembers our trauma, so it's going to go offline.
Yep.
And everything in you is going to go back to your old pattern because you are sure that works.
Right.
Except it no longer serves you
right.
as
It does. Yeah. The coping mechanism doesn't work. It really worked great for me in high school.
Right.
And I think we call it flooding, emotional flooding, and that's because I think that happens in marriages all the time, and the fight, flight, or freeze kicks in, and I have to kind of coach people through that. Yeah. But it's good to kind of like, because it's hard to look at yourself and go like, what is the thing? So I really appreciate that. That's really helpful.
Yeah. So kind of coming back to the planning and the event.
Yeah.
You can see now it's not about.
It's not about that. It's about like, I'm afraid you're going to not be pleased with my thing and you'll leave me. Which when you say that out loud, it's like, that is the dumbest thing in the world.
Don't judge it. Yeah. Don't judge it. Let it come.
Yeah. It's like, that
I know.
Is so dumb.
Now
my
that
other
you've
fear, my other fear is not knowing something. I'm not sure why that is. It's like, if I don't know, then I'm like, that's the only time I'm like, how could I not know that? That's like, if there's ever a point of self-loathing, it would come from not knowing the right thing. And I'm not sure why that comes in.
Well, it kind of it sounds like it plays into your story around like part of the reason you had to shut off wasn't just because your dad left, but you never knew that you would ever be alone.
Right. Yeah, him. That's good. Like, because I think
every child thinks their
parents
are
such a
gonna
great
be there
childhood.
forever.
Elementary years were awesome, and even when we moved to Japan and my dad would be gone for months at a time, he still had one house. Like he still would come back to our apartment in Tokyo.
You can be present and absent at the same time as a parent.
And he wasn't. He was when he was in the actual same building. He was off the charts awesome. Like never not available. He would stop working anytime I asked him to go play catch or do anything. He was 100% available. And I think if that's
to do stuff or to be with you.
I think for a boy, when you're 12 and under, that's the same thing.
Okay.
Because you're not talking about like girls and
you're
stuff.
12 and under, yes.
Yeah. And
older than that, you're wanting to start engaging. in those
So like I remember I talked to my dad about it was in my I just gotten out of the army. I was like talking like, what do you think about girls? He's like, I don't know. I was like, you don't know? Like you've had all this experience. You went through a divorce. You're now remarried. You don't know? And I was like, I guess nobody knows. And that's why maybe it was like, maybe nobody has a clue about anything. And I realized actually people don't. So I was right. And so I felt like that for me, and the more I talk to men that are older, I realize how clueless they are because nobody does this.
Nobody teaches this in school. God forbid we should actually be teaching men and
like
women what it
health,
looks like to have a relationship that's healthy.
Right.
But no, we teach about.
Yeah.
Never mind. I won't say a subject
but I feel like we have so many like emotional orphans out there who don't understand what it is to have a father. And then so therefore emotional orphans produce emotional orphans. And so kind of is there a part of me that maybe I overcompensate, and this is where Adrian does a great job at like helping me see when I'm
emotionally unhealthy with the kids.
Yeah. She's great. I mean, she's beyond awesome at that. So
you're right. There is a responsibility for you to learn that skill set so that she doesn't take on that mental load. Because as the wife of that, it can be hard to feel like I'm constantly having to protect and shield my children from my husband when I want to be his partner.
Yeah. And so thankfully, I think for the most part, I'm super engaged in appropriate ways. But sometimes the competitive drive piece comes out of me, and I'm like, we got to win. And it's like, she's like, so is that what you really want to teach them? I'm like, no, I guess I really want them to just try their best, but I want to win.
We'll always go back to our default.
It's like winning. That's what we do. We win around here. But okay.
So lastly, I'm going to say one more thing.
That's good.
That's working through the hard stuff. The bigger idea is, and I would do this if I had more time, but just build a vision of what you want for yourself in your marriage. Like, what does leadership look like? So that the moments when you have a little inkling of them, you can just say like, thanks, God. Like, that was a little bit. Like the fact that you're thinking 3 months ahead. Thanks, God. For giving me the opportunity.
I feel like I've gotten so much better at this. Like, and I think it's partly because when I can see it in other people, I go, oh, that's me too. Oof. here's what I'm going to suggest you should do. And then I'm like, I'm going to go do that too. You know, like I think that's where I feel like because I'm engaged in this space a lot, but I haven't had someone be able to pull that out of me in an intentional way, which I was really grateful for.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because I know that there's so much growth still to be done to kind of, you know, I think if you were to kind of put me in a box, I'm like one of those individual growth people. I'm like, we could always do better. We could always be a little bit, and I'm like, perfect. Someone who knows how to make me just a little bit better. And I think in general, CEO type people are always like that. They're never content with like status quo. We're always
growth mindset.
Yeah, growth mindset and planning for the future. We're going to be awesome. And, don't look behind, look forward, unless looking behind helps you move forward, that kind of stuff. And so I think I've really had to realize that to move forward, there's stuff that's hindering me from my past that I need to really work through. Because although I do think I'm great, I think there's some stuff that if I'm not aware of. So this has been healthy for me. So thank you.
Yeah.
So tell me about how if there are guys whether Christian or not, how could they get into a space with you or with the people at Powerful Man? Tell me about how that works.
How they can get help.
Yeah.
It usually we have a conversation like this just to make sure someone is a good fit for the particular type of work we do.
Yeah.
Some people really aren't, honestly, because they don't want. You did a really good job, and then I almost pointed out you owned it.
Yeah.
You owned your pieces, and a lot of times we'll get on the phone with guys who are like she.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that drives me
they're
crazy.
just not ready to be coached, and that's okay. That's just where they are.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to just have an honest conversation. Be like, can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
If this is all her fault, why are we on the phone right now? Why are we talking even? Because I can't help her. She's not on the phone with me. I'm here for you.
Wow. Hold on. I want to kind of pause. Just this is so good. I think if we pause the tape, or video or what, I think this is it. I think the victim mentality that I'm going to say men and women have it because I mean it's wild. But as we're talking to men for a second, men. What do you want me to do? And I have a tendency to go there. I totally can own. And Adrian has done a great job of being like, oh, are you a victim of me? I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, I'm the leader. Just not right now, And so I've had to really grow a ton in that. Yeah. I think the victimhood stuff is just so prevalent in our culture because everybody's whining about being offended by everything. And so, when I say something to Adrian or she says something to me and either of us retreat into our victim status, then we've lost the ability to take ownership of our own stuff.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about the ownership of the own stuff, that kind of you were going, because I think it's a huge deal.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really fix the problem until you own your part in it. So you can tell me 15 stories about what's going on, but if you haven't said at one point, and I can see how I played a part in then what you're doing is you're recalling a bunch of information. You're not actually fixing the problem.
Wait, slow that down. Replay. What do you mean? I can see how I played a part in that, but you're not really owning it when you say that?
No, you are.
Oh, okay.
The person who is saying, I can see how I played a part in that.
Okay, so just the simple acknowledgement is okay, maybe I'm not, the common denominator in this relationship is me, that.
Yeah, so a big piece of a guy being ready to do the inner work is, are they willing to put down other things and prioritize it? I mean, the biggest problem of why we see marriages falling apart is because people haven't prioritized it. But they'll go to work, they'll talk kindly to their people, and they come home in zombie state, flipping through their phone, still mentally at work, but not.
Yeah, and I think Adrian would say, Chris, you're not fully present at home. And I'm like, what do you mean? And so I think that's where I really want to improve is totally being available. And what I challenge the congregation, so therefore I have to challenge myself, is let my best hours be the ones with the ones I love the most. Treat the ones you love the most the best. And what happens, I think, for a lot of guys is we treat the ones we love the most the worst because they get the leftovers of the day as opposed to the best of us for that part of the day.
Men typically hear conversations, women feel them. So if you come home and you aren't fully present, she's going to feel that really quickly.
Yeah, that's not fair. It's like cheating. It's like I could say all the right things, but if I'm not fully there, it doesn't matter. She's like,
it's a process of including in part of your day a decompression of going from work to home.
That's good. I think that's a really good. I think that's a discipline because I feel such an urgency to be home that I get home and I take on the kids because I know she's dying, and there isn't any decompression. Yeah. And that's a discipline to be okay with her not being okay with me taking 30
Well,
minutes
there's
in
also
the driveway.
so much that's happening for a guy at work, right? Your value tank, your I don't care if you have the worst job ever, you are still getting affirmation and approval and significance and value to the point where if your cup is full and you're going home, why do you want to be home?
Yeah.
There's no significance to gain. There's no, quote unquote.
Right.
Like what you're thinking in a man's brain.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm not you guys, but what I would guess and what I hear is if my cup is full there, I'm kind of like, well, I'm not achieving being with my family. So what's the
I
point?
think I'm at a cool point right now where leading my wife well is seen by my children. And so I don't want to say cheating in a way, but it kind of is cheating because I'm like, I have an audience and so I can perform.
Yeah.
And so I think that's sort of helpful. And I could feel the weight of their wanting me to be awesome and play with me, daddy, outside, play with me, daddy, and like, hold on, I got to spend time with your mother and give her a hug, give her a kiss and do all the things. And like, okay, how are we, is everything okay? Is there any discipline needs to happen? But, and then, all right, kids, let's go out. And so then we're kind of re-engaging fully. And I think that's the part I nail it on that. It's just then, okay, after we get the kids down, now it's Adrian and me time, and we've scheduled the time. I'm just now, I got to turn it on, rev it up because I think that's where I'm like, I need to do better there to rev up the emotional presence.
Yeah.
And
are you saying that's hard for you, or are you saying that's you got that?
I think I'm doing it, but I think she thinks I'm not, which probably that's the truer metric. Because if she remember, I think I'm saying the right things. What would you like to do right now? I'd love to spend some time with you. And if I'm not if my eyeballs are saying, or like I'm just tired or whatever, then it's probably true that I'm not fully present as I should be. Because I think in a second, if she said, I'm going to look at my phone, I'm like, all right. And I'm not pressing it. I'm like, okay, I guess we're on phone time now. Yeah. And I can go like, oh, it looks like you're on your phone again. Is it phone time? And so I'll just go, well, I guess that's what we're doing, as opposed to, let me see your phone, chuck it. And now, hey, we're now spending time together and being more direct and affirming of like my leadership role right there. Because I don't want to disappoint her because she's really looking at a really great TikTok video.
I mean, I get it. We all us women, we want to sit down and just have a conversation and also be on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like, can you just watch it with me? It'll be fun.
Yeah. That ends up happening.
Sorry, you asked me a question about, and I'm starting to go there around what I do.
Yeah. So how to what do you talk about how you're trying to get men to engage in sort of some leadership training here that's specific to you kill it at work, you kill it at home. How do they get connected? Yeah.
So this is really more relationship type of instruction and coaching. So we have a conversation with them, make sure like we have their problem is the one we solve, that they're ready to take on the problem.
I love the way you said that they're ready. And I think I would assume everybody's ready, but that's not true.
Oh, no. Especially a lot of people who've been walking this path for a long time and the reality of their situation still hasn't hit them. Like they don't believe it's urgent enough right now to do the work.
So when you're talking to these guys, is it generally that the reason they come is because she's already out the door?
Not always. I'd say like 60% of guys have divorce mentioned on the table.
Okay.
And then probably only like 10% of guys are like, everything's good. 1% of guys are like, everything's good, I want to make it better. So just to kind of give you a cue of how guys are
You're not just a complete disaster recovery team. You are,
what I always say is preventative care is better than
emergent 100%,
care. Because we see the emergent all the time. And we want to know like why choose coaching versus counseling. Yeah. Because coaching is different. It's like you can kind of be a bit harder on guys. Yeah. I can like pause you and I can say, can I be honest? I mean, I can do all those things.
In fact, I've started to call my counseling coaching as well.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah. In fact, the latest couple, I go like, hey, before we start, I'm not a counselor. I don't really care about your emotions. I'm a coach, and I'm going to kick you in the rear until you get this right.
It sounds like it. So basically, we do that. We have a conversation with them, make sure that that's something that they're ready for. And if we decide that they're a good fit, we put them into a group where they'll be coached by one of our coaches who's a male with a bunch of other guys that are males as well.
Well, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, hey, Mo, thanks so much for being on us with us today. Just super enjoyed it. Hey, if you're watching, I got more questions. We can bring Mo back. Like, she's an actual person that lives in the Austin area and just down the street from me. So we'll bring her back in. If you got questions, especially the ladies, I think you're probably like, Mo, tell me the secret. And then we'll have to grill Mo and her relationship with her husband. It'll be really fun. But listen, if you got any questions, text us in at 737-231-0605. Or, hey, go to pastorplek.com, leave a message for us there. We love engaging the culture, and this is huge. So we would love to have Mo back. So thanks for being here, Mo.
Yeah,
and from our house to yours, have an awesome week of worship.